have an issue with anime and manga elitists that think Vagabond and Monster are masterpieces, while Naruto and Bleach are shonen trash simply because the first two are seinen. In this video, I'll be explaining why seinen isn't inherently better than shonen, and why shonen masterpieces are just as valuable as the seinen masterpieces. Monster is a thriller story with the deep theme of the nature of humans. Vinland Saga is an action-adventure story about the ugliness of revenge and war and the pursuit of peace. Vagabond is an action story about becoming the strongest. If I compare these three seinen to the big three in shonen, the first obvious difference is the worlds they take place in. The seinen take place in the real world, two of them being historical fiction, but the three shonen take place in a fantasy setting. Neither of these are inherently better. They both offer their own strengths and weaknesses. A realistic setting requires research and planning in order to stay accurate to the real world. It also makes the story feel more grounded and relatable because the characters are humans living in the same world as us. Realism is usually a good thing, but taking artistic liberties isn't wrong either. All fantasy settings are based on the real world to some degree, so some kind of relatability is still there. Fantasy settings also take a lot of creativity in order to make a believable setting. A realistic setting is bound to the world's rules, meaning that the author has to work within limits, which takes skills. But a fantasy setting can also require an author to create their own rules, like a power system, and making sure that said rules are not only creative but consistent is also a difficult task. The next difference is the maturity between the two demographics. Seinen are aimed at adult men, while shonen are aimed at teenagers. But does this really make a difference? Vinland's manga started as a shonen, which then switched to seinen, yet there were no noticeable differences in the story. During Steel Ball Run, JoJo switched from shonen to seinen, and yet again, there were no differences in the way the story was told as a shonen and as a seinen. Attack on Titan and Tokyo Ghoul are both dark fantasy actions, but the former is shonen while the latter is seinen, yet both are equally mature and dark. Death Note and Monster are both mystery thrillers, yet despite the differences in demographics, Death Note is arguably darker even though it's aimed at a younger audience. New Game is a cute girls anime, but when you look at the manga, it's a seinen. Not because of the writing, but most likely because it takes place in an adult setting, with jobs and occasionally drinking. This manga could have been a shonen, as One Piece focuses on upper teens who do mature things like drinking. Or because of this, One Piece could have been a seinen. All of this shows that there is almost a non-existent line between shonen and seinen. The demographic doesn't determine the writing style or quality. These are simply target audiences, and just because it's targeted at one audience doesn't mean another audience can enjoy it just as much. But using my three examples, the seinen are clearly more mature than the shonen, but what does this mean? In the seinen, the tone is more serious and sometimes dark, while in the shonen, the tone is more uplifting and energetic. The tone of a manga doesn't automatically dictate how well written a story is. A dark story can be poorly written, and a positive and happy story can be well written. But what about themes? Not only does the maturity of themes not equal the quality of themes, but the shonen can tackle mature themes as well. As I said before, Monster is about human nature. It asks the question whether humans are inherently good or bad. Vinland is about how war and revenge are destructive and wrong, and has its protagonist searching for a way to repent and create peace. Vagabond is about becoming the strongest, what it means to be the strongest, and what strength actually is. On the other hand, the big three have themes like friendship is good, or work hard to accomplish your dreams. The seinen for the most part have more philosophical, original, and well thought out themes, but does that make them better? Who decided that those types of themes were more valuable than the ones that the shonen have? They're deeper and more complex, but the themes that shonen have are equally valuable. The shonen themes, while basic, are good life lessons and are actually applicable in life, regardless of how old you are. Promoting these lessons can teach their target audience, but also inspire people of all ages. The seinen themes are thought-provoking, but the shonen themes are useful in real life, so why would one be better than the other? Like I said about tones, a story with philosophical themes can be poorly written, and a story with basic life lessons can be well written. It all comes down to execution, and the 6 seinen and shonen all executed their themes well. Additionally, the shonen have tackled mature themes too. One Piece has taken on slavery and racism before. Naruto has approached the cycle of hatred and revenge, similar to Vinland, and Bleach tackled nihilism at one point. The storytelling between the two sides are also different. The seinen tend to move in a straight line and are shorter, while the shonen have multiple story arcs with different focuses that span over a long period of time. Monster specifically is extremely focused on Dr. Tenma's cat and mouse chase with Johan. Vinland saga, while not finished, starts with the adventure of Astolad's band of Vikings and moves to focusing on Thorfinn's redemption and goal of reaching Vinland. Vagabond is focused on Musashi challenging powerful opponents and becoming invincible. This kind of focus not only allows for tight writing, but it also puts a greater emphasis on the primary themes of the manga, but the writing in the big three brings its own advantages. While they aren't hyper-focused like the seinen, the multiple story arcs along with the extended runtime allows the manga to have more content and explore and cover many different themes instead of narrowing down to one or a few like the seinen. It also provides space to flesh out several characters. It's almost like comparing a serial anime to an episodic one. Both have pros and cons, but neither is necessarily superior. In conclusion, stereotypical shonen manga can have as much quality as a seinen manga in areas that are the same and in areas that are different. They both accomplish different things, but one is not inherently better than the other. People seem to understand how to analyze the quality of a deep seinen, but not a battle shonen. Seinen can tell tightly written, focused, and mature stories that take place in realistic settings with a mature and philosophical theme. Shonen can tell expansive, positive stories in creative and fantastical worlds with primarily idealistic and inspirational themes, but can also touch on multiple different themes and ideas. Writing in a realistic setting is just as challenging as writing in a good fantasy setting. More maturity isn't equivalent to better writing. Philosophical themes don't have more weight than idealistic and inspirational ones. A focused story structure isn't inherently better than an expansive one. It all comes down to how well the author executes these ideas. And as I said before, all 6 of these manga had amazing execution that make them masterpieces. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe.